Kelsey Mitchell, 7 for 10 from the three-point line. Off the start, 8 points quick. You knew, oh, Kelsey Mitchell's hot today. Oh, Kelsey Mitchell's hot today. This might be her game. Let's keep the hot hand in. Let's keep the hot hand going. Let's set her some big-body screens, get her open. Kelsey Mitchell, she did it all.
There was no Caitlin Clark, no national spotlight, no viral highlights to carry the headlines. Just a road game against a depleted Chicago Sky team. But Kelsey Mitchell didn't care. In fact, she saw it as the perfect stage to remind everyone exactly who she is. 35 points, 7 threes, 0 mercy.
7 for 10 from the three-point line. She got to the rack. She got to the free throw line, carving up the defense, looking like a little snake, how she just slithers in and out of that defense. Kelsey Mitchell, salute to you. Late in the game, as the Chicago Sky were thinking to themselves, we might actually come back to the game, Kelsey Mitchell says, slow your roll. Slow down there. You thought you were going to come back in? No, you're not coming back into this game. Not now, not ever.
While all eyes were asking how the Indiana Fever would survive without their rookie phenom, Mitchell answered with fire, torching every defender thrown her way. And right beside her, Michaela Timpson, a rising force who made sure Angel Reese's absence wasn't the only thing Chicago had to worry about. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement, a beatdown, a masterclass in leadership and execution. And it sent one clear message to the league. Indiana isn't just about Clark. When Mitchell is locked in like this, no one is safe, especially not the Chicago Sky.
I'm beginning to suspect the Indiana Fever are a better team than the Chicago Sky. Don't ask me why I believe that or think that. It's just a sneaking suspicion that I have. I mean, it could be the fact that the Fever spank them every time they play. Could be that.
Kelsey Mitchell didn't just show up. She exploded. From the opening tip, it was clear something was different. There was a fire in her eyes, the kind you see when a player isn't waiting to see how the game unfolds. She came in ready to take over, and that's exactly what she did. Before the Sky could even catch their breath, Mitchell had already dropped 8 quick points, spot-up threes, off-the-dribble daggers, slices to the rim. The crowd in Chicago never even had a chance to settle in before the damage started piling up. Mitchell finished the night with 35 points on 12 of -19 shooting. She drilled 7 three-pointers with ruthless consistency and got to the line, knocking down all 4 of her free throws.
Kelsey Mitchell, oh goodness, Kelsey Mitchell. 12 for 19, 7 for 10 from the three-point line, 5 for 9 from the field, 2-point and in, 4 for 4 from the free throw, 35 points, wait for it folks, 3 steals, wait for it folks, 6 assists.
There wasn't a wasted motion in her game. Every possession she touched the ball felt like it could end in a bucket, and most of them did. But it wasn't just about the scoring. What made this performance so lethal was her control of the game's rhythm. She wasn't just hot, she was conducting. Every time Chicago looked like they might build some momentum, Mitchell slammed the door shut. When they made a little run late in the third quarter and cut the lead to single digits, Kelsey calmly stepped up, hit a tough three, then followed it with a drive and finish at the rim. No celebration, no antics. Just cold execution.
Kelsey Mitchell might go and fuck about and make the All-W first team. And I'm not, like, that is, like, she has been, this is what we need.
There was one sequence that perfectly captured her mindset. With the Fever's offense slightly stalling early in the fourth, Mitchell took matters into her own hands. She called for an isolation, pulled up from beyond the arc with a hand in her face, and buried it. Then, on the next possession, she dished out an assist after drawing a double team, proving she wasn't just gunning for stats, she was running the show. What's even more impressive, she did it with efficiency and poise. Only 2 turnovers the entire game. She added 6 assists and 3 steals, showing that her impact extended beyond just scoring. Her defense was active, her passing was crisp, and every time Chicago sent extra help, she found the open teammate without forcing the issue. This wasn't just a good game, it was a clinic. And the fact that she did it without Caitlin Clark on the floor, that's what makes it resonate even louder. The narrative has been building all season. Indiana only wins when Clark plays well, but Mitchell just flipped that script on its head. She didn't need Clark to draw defenders or create space. She made her own gravity. She owned the floor. By the end of the night, Chicago was broken. Mitchell had burned every matchup, outrun every defender, and made sure nobody missed Caitlin Clark, at least not tonight. This was her moment, her game, and she made sure the league felt it.
Kelsey Mitchell played a good Kelsey Mitchell game.
While Kelsey Mitchell lit up the scoreboard, it was Michaela Timpson who quietly and then loudly stole the show with her sheer physicality, energy, and unrelenting hustle. This wasn't just a breakout game. It was a loud announcement to the league that Timpson is not just another bench body, she's a force. And on this night, she didn't just fill in, she completely overwhelmed Chicago's frontcourt, especially Camila Cardoso. From the moment Timpson checked in, her presence was undeniable. Her energy was off the charts. You could feel it in the pace of the game, her first big moment. A rip-and-run steal turned fast break layup. That was the tone setter. Suddenly, Indiana wasn't just playing solid basketball, they were dictating the tempo. And Timpson was right at the center of it. She finished the game with 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and an assist. But the numbers don't fully capture her impact. What really stood out was her freakish athleticism. At one point, she elevated so quickly and snatched a ball off the rim that it looked like she'd been launched by springs. It wasn't just a rebound, it was a declaration. Timpson doesn't jump, she levitates, the kind of bounce that makes even veterans pause and think, wait, what did I just see? But what truly made this her signature game was how she neutralized Camila Cardoso. In the first half, Cardoso managed a decent start, 11 points, and some interior touches that made the Sky hopeful. But in the second half, she vanished. Timpson smothered her. Cardoso scored just 1 point after halftime, and every possession she touched the ball felt like it came with immediate pressure, disruption, or a turnover waiting to happen. It was a classic case of someone outplaying their scouting report. Timpson, who's often overlooked in favor of bigger names, made Cardoso, one of the most hyped young bigs in the league, look completely lost. And it wasn't just about strength or size. It was her timing, her reads, her relentless motor. Timpson was everywhere. She played minutes at the 5, battling in the paint, rotating on defense, chasing down loose balls. She was Indiana's engine on defense and the spark on offense. When things needed a jolt, her performance was so impactful that fans immediately voiced concern about what's become a frustrating pattern. Timpson has a great game, and then inexplicably rides the bench the next night. It's happened before, but this time the momentum feels different. This time, it would be a mistake not to ride the wave by the end of the night. Timpson didn't just help win the game, she reshaped the conversation around Indiana's depth. If Kelsey Mitchell was the flamethrower, Michaela Timpson was the wrecking ball, smashing expectations, swallowing matchups, and proving she belongs on the court far more often than she's been allowed. The only question now, will Stephanie White let her keep cooking? Camila Cardoso started the night looking like she might actually be a problem. For the first 20 minutes, she was active in the paint, finding her spots, and racking up 11 points with relative ease. She was taking advantage of mismatches, getting second-chance looks, and giving the Chicago Sky a fighting chance to stay in the game. But then the second half started, and Camila Cardoso disappeared completely. It wasn't just a scoring drought, it was a full-on vanishing act. One single point in the entire second half, no paint presence, no defensive intimidation, no leadership, nothing. It was as if she evaporated the moment Michaela Timpson stepped in and said, "Not tonight." And that's where the frustration kicks in. Cardoso played 33 minutes. That's star-level floor time, but what she gave in return was minimal. She finished the game with more turnovers, 5 than rebounds. That's not just underwhelming, that's a red flag for a player that's supposed to be a foundational piece for the Sky. What makes this collapse even worse is the context. The Sky were without Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith. They needed someone, anyone, to step into a leadership role and carry the team, even if just emotionally. Instead, Cardoso folded under pressure. She wasn't aggressive, she wasn't vocal, she wasn't impactful. The energy she had in the first half never returned, and the Fever knew it. They attacked her, they challenged her, and she never responded. Every time the Sky needed a stop, Cardoso was a step late. Every time they needed a rebound, she was outworked. And on offense, she hesitated, she drifted, she faded into the background while the game demanded she rise to the moment. That kind of passivity is hard to overlook, especially when you're the tallest player on the floor. It didn't help that the Fever's front court was having a field day. Aaliyah Boston quietly bullied her in the second half, while Michaela Timpson made her look flat-footed and overwhelmed. The Sky desperately needed Cardoso to be the anchor, but she couldn't even be a presence. She wasn't just outplayed, she was exposed. Let's be clear, this isn't about one bad game. It's about a recurring pattern. Cardoso has the physical tools to dominate, but the consistency still missing the motor. Questionable. And against a team missing its biggest star. On a night when the Sky needed her most, she offered silence. What should have been a chance to showcase her growth turned into a case study in disengagement. Chicago fans were left asking, how can someone play 33 minutes and make so little impact? And just like that, the conversation flipped. What started as a hopeful night for Cardoso turned into another reason why the Sky are slipping, and why trust in their young core is starting to crack. By the time the final buzzer sounded, Camila wasn't just invisible. She was a liability. For most of the season, Fever head coach Stephanie White has been walking a tightrope. She's been criticized for her rotations, questioned for her substitutions, and doubted when it came to maximizing her roster's talent. But in this game, with Caitlin Clark sidelined and all eyes on how Indiana would respond, White made a bold decision. And for once, it worked beautifully. The first sign of her shift came when Natasha Howard, one of the team's veterans, completely fell. Flat, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 energy. 12 minutes of lifeless basketball. It was obvious she didn't have it. But instead of sticking with her out of habit or loyalty, White pulled the plug. No trial-lander, no Gavitafumor plays. She sat her down and kept her down. That alone signaled something had changed. White wasn't playing it safe. Anymore in Howard's place, White gave real minutes to Michaela Timpson, who was coming off the bench like a human spark plug. It wasn't just a rotation adjustment, it was a philosophical shift. Rather than sticking with veterans out of routine, White leaned into momentum, and Timpson rewarded her tenfold with effort, disruption, and highlight-level athleticism. It changed the pace of the game instantly. White also unleashed newly signed Chloe Bibby, who came in and immediately splashed back-to-back threes. Pull up, bang, catch and shoot, bang again. Her confidence spread through the lineup like electricity. Suddenly, the offense looked wider, the lanes were open, and Chicago's defense had no idea where the next shot was coming from. That's the power of spacing, and it happened because Bibby was allowed to play her game. But perhaps the biggest success was how White managed Kelsey Mitchell's minutes. Instead of riding her until the wheels fell off, White gave her calculated rest early in the fourth, a risky move when your star has 30-plus points and is cooking. And yes, the offense did stall briefly during that stretch, but it gave Mitchell just enough gas to come back in and finish strong. That's the kind of long-game thinking White hasn't always shown this season. Of course, it wasn't all perfect. There was still a rough 3-minute drought where the offense completely stopped, and many fans groaned when Sydney Colson was inserted for a shaky stretch. But even that felt more like a brief misfire than a systemic flaw. White quickly corrected it by bringing back the main weapons. What stood out most was that Stephanie White didn't micromanage. She let the game flow. She trusted the hot hand. She didn't overcoach, and sometimes that's the best kind of coaching. The Fever looked confident, relaxed, free, and that comes from the top down. In a season full of questionable calls, this was the game where Stephanie White silenced critics, at least for one night. She made gutsy calls, trusted unlikely players, and watched as her team dominated without their superstar. It was a blueprint for how Indiana can win without relying on just one name. No one expected Chloe Bibby to make waves in her Indiana Fever debut. She had just been signed, barely had time to integrate with the roster, and wasn't even mentioned in the pregame buzz. But when her name was called, she didn't just show up, she made herself impossible to ignore. In just a handful of minutes, Bibby turned the tide of the game, proving that sometimes all a team needs is the right piece in the right place. Bibby entered the game and immediately made an impact. From beyond the arc, within minutes, she hit back-to-back threes, one off the dribble, one in catch-and-shoot rhythm. And it wasn't just about the points, it was what those shots did to the defense. The Chicago Sky were forced to stretch, to scramble, and to rotate in ways they hadn't planned for. Suddenly, the floor opened up. Driving lanes appeared. The offense had room to breathe. And that's when you realize Bibby's value isn't just about scoring, it's about geometry. With her hanging around the perimeter, defenders had to stay honest. That gave players like Kelsey Mitchell more space to operate, Michaela Timpson more room to crash the boards, and Aaliyah Boston more clarity in the post. Everything started flowing smoother because Bibby created separation without ever needing the ball in her hands for long. What stood outmost wasn't her confidence, though she had plenty of it. It was how well she fit. She knew her role. She didn't try to overcomplicate things or force herself into the offense. She knew her purpose: stretch the defense and punish sagging defenders. And she executed it with precision. Defensively, she wasn't dominant, but she held her own. She didn't overcommit, stayed within her zone, and gave solid help rotations when needed. What's more important is that she didn't become a liability, which in a debut game is saying a lot. The fact that she provided instant offense while staying solid on defense makes her one of the most surprisingly complete contributors of the night. Now, the bigger question emerges: what happens next? Because Bibby didn't just have a good night, she inserted herself into the conversation for real rotation minutes. If Stephanie White is serious about keeping the floor spaced and the offense versatile, it's hard to ignore what Bibby brings. She's the kind of player that doesn't need volume to make noise. She just needs a sliver of daylight, and when she gets it, she makes opponents pay. Her debut may have flown under the radar to casual fans, but for anyone paying close attention, it was a massive development. The Fever have been searching all season for depth players who can shift momentum without needing to dominate the ball. In Chloe Bibby, they may have found a missing piece, and if this debut is any indication, she's just getting started. While Kelsey Mitchell was lighting up the scoreboard and Michaela Timpson was tearing through Chicago's frontcourt. Or viral plays. No emotional outbursts or chest pounding, just quiet dominance and absolute authority in the paint. Boston finished with 14 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. But even those impressive numbers only scratched the surface of what she did for the Fever in this game. Her presence alone altered the rhythm of the Sky's offense. In the first half, Cardoso looked like she might be a factor. She scored 11 points and found some rhythm in the paint. No more second chances. She anchored Indiana's defense, rotated with precision, and turned the paint into a danger zone for anyone in a Sky jersey. That wasn't a coincidence. It was Boston's doing on the glass. Boston boxed out with discipline and outmuscled Chicago's bigs for every critical rebound. Her timing was impeccable. On several occasions, she tipped contested boards back to herself or redirected them to a teammate to keep possession alive. Every rebound she pulled down took the wind out of Chicago's sails a little more. But where she really stood out was her playmaking. Accident, not Boston. Her passes were deliberate, sharp, and always a step ahead of the defense. Whether it was a bounce pass to a cutting Mitchell, a swing out to Bibby on the wing, or a quick dish from a double team from a center is rare and incredibly valuable when you're trying to run a fluid, unselfish offense. Her poise was also evident when the Fever needed stability. There was a stretch in the third quarter where Indiana's offense started to lose its rhythm. A couple of turnovers, some bad shot selection, and momentum seemed to shift toward Chicago. That's when Boston stepped up, hit both free throws, then followed it with a defensive stop and an assist on the next possession. But make no mistake, she was the glue that held everything together. Her stat line told a solid story. Her performance told a dominant one. With Caitlin Clark out, everyone wondered who would step up. The fireworks, Aaliyah Boston, delivered the foundation. Without her, none of it would have stuck. The Chicago Sky didn't just lose, they unraveled. On their home floor, against a Fever squad missing Caitlin Clark, with the spotlight wide open for anyone to step up. Chicago stumbled over its own feet and let the moment slip through their hands. What could have been a statement game quickly turned into a showcase of disorganization, frustration, and missed opportunity. Yes, they were short-handed. No Angel Reese, no Haley Van Lith, that's fair. But Indiana was without their biggest star, too, and they didn't flinch. The Sky, on the other hand, looked like a team unsure of their identity from the very beginning. They couldn't decide if they were running through the post, playing through the wings, or just surviving possession to possession. And the results were brutal. CAM, a la Cardoso, their towering interior presence, was expected to dominate with Reese out. Instead, she vanished. Rachel Banham, to her credit, put up a solid offensive game, minus 26 points, on 8 of minus 15 shooting. But even that came with baggage. 7 turnovers, most of them unforced. Most of them coming at critical junctures when Chicago was trying to claw. Back into the game, it was like watching a dam burst, one crack at a time. The Sky's bench gave them almost nothing. Outside of rookie Maddie Westbeld, who showed flashes of promise, there was no real spark, no rhythm, no resistance. It's one thing to lose because the other team outplays you. It's another to beat yourself with sloppy decisions, late rotations, and poor effort. Chicago did both. Defensively, they were a mess. Every time Indiana ran a simple pick and pop or a high screen action, the Sky looked confused. Miscommunications left shooters like Chloe Bibby wide open. Kelsey Mitchell danced past defenders who had no business switching onto her. Michaela Timpson bullied the paint and the rotations. Late, always late. The most telling moment came during a small scuffle between Michaela Oniware and Sophie Cunningham. Nothing major, just some physical play, a shove, a little heat. But it highlighted what was really going on. Chicago was frustrated, not motivated, not locked in, just agitated, tired, and off their game. It was the kind of scuffle teams start when they're looking for energy they can't find in their play. The coaching didn't help either. There was no clear adjustment to slow down Indiana's momentum, no tactical counter when the Fever's bench players caught fire. Just a lot of standing, subbing, and hoping the starters could dig out of a hole that kept getting deeper. The Sky never took control, they reacted, and by the time they realized the game was slipping away, it was already gone. This loss wasn't about missing stars, it was about missing effort, discipline, structure. The Sky had a chance to prove they were more than just a one-player show. Instead, they showed the opposite. Without Angel Reese's edge and energy, the team drifted, and Indiana made sure they paid for every second of it. In a game where Kelsey Mitchell dropped 35 and Michaela Timpson broke out with a career performance, it's easy to overlook the role players who kept the engine running. But the Indiana Fever's win over the Chicago Sky wasn't just about star power. It was also about stability, hustle, and smart low-risk basketball from their supporting cast. Enter Lexi Hull and Sydney Colson. Let's start with Lexi Hull. She didn't have the cleanest box score, just 7 points on 1 for 4 from 3, but her presence was felt on every possession. Hull played with a kind of chaos energy that constantly disrupted the flow of the game for Chicago. She hit the floor multiple times, chased down long rebounds, and made key defensive plays that don't always show up in the stats. One of her most memorable moments came just before the halftime buzzer, with the clock winding down and the Sky assuming the Fever would hold for one shot. Hull pulled up for a mid-range jumper and buried it at the buzzer. It was the kind of momentum-swinging shot that doesn't go viral but punches hard in the context of a game. What made Hull's performance so valuable wasn't just effort, it was awareness. She knew when to rotate, when to gamble for a steal, and when to collapse to help on defense. She played like someone who understood her role perfectly. Keep the defense honest. Apply pressure. Be annoying. In short, do the dirty work. Then there's Sydney Colson, whose performance stirred mixed reactions but ultimately provided something every good team needs: a steady hand. Colson didn't score a single point, but she ended the game as a plus 21. In plus-minus, an incredible stat for someone who didn't light up the scoreboard. She racked up 3 assists, had 0 turnovers, and controlled the tempo when the Fever needed a breather from Mitchell's scoring avalanche. Yes, there was a rocky stretch early in the fourth quarter when the Fever's offense stagnated with Colson on the floor and Mitchell on the bench. But even in that slump, Colson didn't panic. She played within herself. No wild drives, no wasted possessions. Just simple ball movement and careful spacing. And when Mitchell returned, the offense reignited without needing to dig itself out. Of a whole, Coulson also made smart decisions defensively. She wasn't trying to be a lockdown defender, she was trying to disrupt rhythm. Whether it was poking a pass away, switching quickly, or just directing traffic vocally, she led with intelligence rather than athleticism. Together, Hull and Coulson didn't win the game, but they made sure it stayed one. That's the beauty of a deep roster. While the headlines go to the big scorers, it's the glue players who ensure momentum doesn't vanish the second the stars sit down. And in this game, Indiana's glue held strong. It was the kind of team win that goes deeper than highlights built on trust, chemistry, and quiet contributions that echo long after the final buzzer. The Indiana Fever didn't just win, they sent a message. Without Caitlin Clark, they walked into Chicago and dismantled the sky behind Kelsey Mitchell's explosive 35-point masterpiece, Michaela Timpson's breakout domination, and the smart, steady support of unsung heroes like Lexi Hull and Sydney Coulson. Aaliyah Boston anchored the paint with quiet authority, while newcomer Chloe Bibby changed the court spacing with just a few deadly threes. It was the kind of performance that forces the league to pay attention. This wasn't a fluke, it was a blueprint. Depth, hustle, and confidence carried the day. Meanwhile, the Chicago Sky crumbled under pressure, revealing just how fragile their system becomes without Angel Reese. For the Fever, this win proves one thing: they're more than just Caitlin Clark. And if this version of the team shows up consistently, the rest of the league better start preparing now. The Fever are coming.